So there will be no presentations. There will be no open circle programs the next 2 Sundays due to the holidays. But don't despair, we have some great things planned for the month of January. On the 8th, we have David Bryan talking about the 4 desires. And on the 15th, we have Dr. Benjamin Franklin returns. I don't know how many of you are fans of his. This is his 4th talk in a 5-talk series. He's going to talk about, it's an entirely new program as he reports to the citizens of Philadelphia on his exploits in France over the past 9 years. On the 22nd, we have Jan Kostick, Lights Out, the City of Lights. He talks to us about finances. It doesn't sound like a good title. I just want to say that. Let's see. It says unthinkable, but it happened last night, December 8th in Paris, a harbinger of things to come. Don't think it doesn't affect your investments. So come here for that cheery one. And finally, on the 28th, we have Journalism and Democracy with Patrick Hefferman and Domingo Flores. So we have a great lineup for the month of January, all taking place obviously in the new year.
When are you doing it?
And then today's presentation is by Steve Balfour, our actual, even though Diana's kind of in charge of everything, he is actually in charge of even more. So the talk today is called Looking Forward. As he starts his final year as president of the Lake Chapala Society, which is sad, Steve wanted to meet with us in an open forum, and here we are. The first part of today, he's going to share with us his background so we know what drives him. That could be scary. I almost brought tequila. Then he's going to talk to us about what has been accomplished at LCS in the recent years and why. And then he's going to follow that up with an open discussion with us, a positive discussion, was to keep the complaints, in a positive way. What could be done? And it's about where do we go from here? So we're going to have plenty of time for that. And he wants to have this information. He wants to have our opinions and what we're up to because they're going to have a board retreat soon, and he wants to bring that into it. So that's really wonderful that we get to be included. And Steve says change has 2 realities. It is inevitable, and human nature leads towards resistance. On that happy note, let me introduce and more warmly welcome Steve Balfour.
Thank you so much, Kat. So Kat asked me previously if I was nervous about this, and I said no, and then while she was standing here, I all of a sudden got nervous. Just pre-COVID, it was an annual event. We had an event here with the U.S. consulate, the Canadian consulate, a lot of government officials from Mexico, and it was my job to introduce people, which I didn't know until everybody was already on stage. And Steve, we need you to introduce people. Here's their script. And so they gave me the script, put it on the podium here, and it went fine at the beginning. I was introducing people, and the U.S. consulate and the different people, stuff like that. And then what we would call in the U.S. the lieutenant governor from Mexico spoke. And when he left the podium with his speech, he left with everything. So now I went up and I have no idea who I'm introducing next, but totally mistakenly didn't introduce the consulate from the Canadian consulate. So that was embarrassing, but we made up, so it was fine. Anyway, thank you so much, Kat, for all you do for Open Circle. Kat's been with Open Circle for how many umpteen million years? And her and Phil have been the co-hosts of Open Circle for such a long time, and it adds so much to this Sunday morning experience, so thank you for that. As you said, this is in 3 parts. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. Now, people that know me know I love to talk, and they say I'm always talking about different things, but usually I'm talking about LCS, Concerts in the Park, Lakeside Little Theater, AHIC, Lakeside. Those things I talk about the most. And some people have said to me, well, Steve, nobody knows who the hell you are, though, Could you talk a little bit about yourself? So I'll give a little background. I started in the nonprofit world when I was about that high. I was in my school class in public school out in Melrose. I was actually born up in Maine, so nice to have another person from Maine here, but I was born in Melrose, which is 7 miles north of Boston, and a group of kids from our school knocked over the eagle that was on top of the War Memorial tribute in the center of town, and that really, hurt me. I felt that was a major insult here, people that had given their lives in the line of duty, and I wanted to do something about it. So I did a fundraiser to get a new eagle, and that eagle's still there, so that was my first step into nonprofit, I guess. Then I was involved in my church when I was young, and I remember, boy, in the very early years of church, this little phrase that we learned, and hail guest, we ask not what thou art. If friend, we greet thee hand and heart. If stranger, such no longer be. If foe, our love shall conquer thee. And I've carried that throughout my entire life. So I've learned that when I was probably in 3rd grade, and I still have that as part of my process. Then from getting involved in community events, and I got involved in political campaigns, and a congressman from Massachusetts, if anybody from them might have recalled Brad Morse, and he had me chosen to be a page in Washington for the Congress. And at the last minute, I sort of panicked and backed out of that, but that would have been quite an experience. But I stayed involved with politics. Then I became the youngest member of the city's youth commission. Now, in the city, there was a regulation you had to be over a certain age in order to serve on a city commission. And they went through the alderman in town and the mayor went through all these loopholes and new changes to regulations that allowed me to serve in that capacity. And in that capacity, I raised the funds to build a new youth center in the first youth center in the city of Melrose. So that was a great project. Then that brought me into the 70s, and in 1974, I believe it was, there was a thing in Boston that was known as court-ordered school integration through busing. And that was probably one of the most powerful experiences in my life. I was a monitor on one of the buses where we were taking children of color into white schools, and the reverse way was happening. And boy, the first day on a bus and getting off, and I was the only white person there on the bus, and the things that adults could say to children just absolutely shocked me. I just couldn't believe it. The spitting, holding bats, and really trying to intimidate and scare people. I'll never forget that experience, and that really played a big role in molding who I am today. We went on with my church. We developed the Roxbury Melrose day camp, where we bring children from Melrose. Melrose had 2 African-American families in the city of Melrose back when I was there. And, we'd bring children from Melrose into Roxbury, and then for 1 week, and then the following week did the reverse of that. And that was a more positive experience because the churches were involved, and we had lots of programs and things like that. But what was going on in the city of Boston was actually really amazing at that time. Politics was a big part of my life. I worked for Barney Frank, who was a congressman from up in Massachusetts, and Elaine Noble, who was the first lesbian state representative that was publicly in the United States, and had some great experiences there. Then from there, I ran into the Dunphy family. And the Dunphy family, a very political family, and they operated the Parker House Hotel in Boston. And so they said, Steve, all the things you're doing with political campaigns, we do that in hotels too, event planning and so on and so forth, conferences and what have you, and different activities, restaurant operation, food service, whatever. So they taught me into coming to work at the Park House Hotel, and that's where I learned so much. I never could imagine what I learned at the Park House Hotel would apply so well to what I do here at Lake Chapala Society. It's all the same process. There's meetings, there's maintenance of facilities. I was executive housekeeper, so I'm used to taking care of things and what have you. So that was a great experience. But when I was first interviewed for the Park House Hotel, the woman that became my boss was named Fran Bowden. And she goes, Steve, I want to hire you to be a convention service coordinator. But here's the thing, what she's learned in her life, there are people who are events people and there are people who are not, Just because you plan a family wedding doesn't make you an events person, but she says, I don't know if you're gonna do well in the events business, but I'm willing to give it a try. So here it is a whole bunch of years later and I'm still in the events business. Don't know what I did wrong or what I did right. So from there, I worked my way. I was with Sheraton Hotels. Then I was brought out to be food and beverage at the St. Francis in San Francisco, which is a very nice hotel up there, and overseeing the restaurants and what have you. Again, more experience that I still use to this day, and overseeing some of the banquets and what have you. From there, I moved quickly to Hawaii. That lasted less than 3 months. Didn't like island life at all. Didn't like the idea of traveling 30 minutes and being in the water, no matter which direction you go into. Water's not my thing. And so, but then, that being said, I came back to Southern California and went into the yacht charter business. So we realized that people that own $1 million yachts, on average, use their yacht 26 days out of the year. Can you imagine? Having a $1 million toy and only using it 26 days a year. So we went around and talked to the yacht owners and made arrangements where we would charter them out for parties and events and did all kinds of things, which started to give me great exposure to the Hollywood industry, if you will, and that was a wonderful experience as well. But during that point in time, many of my staff were coming down with this new illness, and this was back in the early 80s, and we were trying to figure out what was going on. So it was HIV, which is really the pandemic of our lifetimes. That's the biggest continuous. There still is no cure for that whatsoever. And so when my staff started getting sick, I started getting involved in more nonprofits there, working with AIDS Project Los Angeles, AIDS Healthcare Foundation, which is now the world's largest organization. And I continued to learn a lot through that process. I learned a lot of things that I was able to use here when COVID was coming in. When COVID first started here, I had no idea what was going to happen. And I was prepared for, if necessary, the possibility that the hospitals here in Mexico might get completely filled with Mexican clientele, Mexican patients. And many of our expat friends wouldn't have a place to go. So I had plans in place for developing triage units here on our campus to care for people. I had plans for how many beds could be put in each facility. I had plans for who we could call on for volunteers, people to help out with that. And I wanted to be prepared for anything. I ordered cases of the latex gloves, cases of the face shields, cases of the face masks, the gel and what have you, right away, within those 5 días en casa, because I anticipated this is going to be something really bad because of what I had seen back in the HIV world. And over half of what I ordered got totally stuck at customs, and who knows what ever happened. I paid for it, but it's, maybe it's still sitting in Guadalajara airport, who knows, but the Mexican government wouldn't let it through because so much of it was coming from China. And so who knows what happened. I hope they put it to good use, is all I hope. So I've done a lot of different things. The other thing I learned when it's AIDS Healthcare Foundation, which is now a worldwide organization. When I was there, it was a much smaller organization, about a $10 to $15 million organization, and now it's a $1 billion organization, and they have facilities here in Guadalajara, Mexico City, Tijuana, Africa, all over the place. And but one of the things we learned there was we had a series of community clinics, and it bothered me, the community clinics. We also had thrift stores, and they had one. I opened up 6 more thrift stores while I was working there. And what I hated was everything was dependent upon what was donated to us. So the furniture in the clinics was used furniture. Some of it smelled like a cat had spent a little bit too much time on it or torn it apart. And we really had a different philosophy. We felt because people are going to a community clinic or for community services, they should have as good of an experience as anybody else going to Cedars-Sinai or Hollywood Presbyterian or any of these different hospitals. So we really changed our approach there. Even with the thrift stores, I didn't want a mismatch of hangers, wire hangers in there. I want all the hangers to match. I wanted people to walk into our thrift store and believe that they were in a gap of thrift store. I believe our people deserve that shopping experience. And the same way here is where I've really tried to focus on really thinking differently and not just being thankful for anything somebody gives to us, but is it something we can use? And how can we make this a better organization for everybody? How can we treat everybody equally? From there, I ended up I've been coming to Mexico since 1978. My first trip was Zacatecas. But in 1994, there was a tremendous need for HIV programs here in Mexico City. So, and those that were at the December 1st concert will have heard this story already, so I apologize. But we were trying to start a hospice in Mexico City. And we connected with another hospice, and this was a hospice where it had several sort of wings off, almost like spokes off a wheel. And each wing had a different group of children in it. One with children that were infected with HIV through drug use. Another one through prostitution at very young ages. And the different things that we're dealing with. Because we didn't want these kids and people coming in there sharing their different experiences. We didn't want one person to pick up bad habits from one person to bring it to another, with their friends visiting, what have you, family visiting. And then we did a concert in Mexico City, a fundraiser with Celia Cruz and Mark Anthony. Fabulous show. There were 3 of us that were working full-time there producing it. And the mayor of Mexico City called us in for a meeting. And he goes, I totally admire what you're doing. I actually have a relative with HIV in my family. He says, but I need to tell you something. There's a high likelihood you're going to be shot. We do not believe you'll make it through this alive, and we cannot protect you. All that did for me was give me more drive, more determination. We're going to move forward. The worst that ended up happening was a whole blockade of cars about 3 blocks away from the theater where we're doing the show, and to try to prevent people from coming to this fundraising event. But that's what we were going through at that point in time. Then I was at one of the other hospices one day, and they get a phone call saying, hey, send your ambulance across the street to this hospital. And we're like, okay, well, we're a hospice. We don't have an ambulance, and we don't have a doctor and what have you. We have some, more first aid, Red Cross type volunteers and what have you. And they says, no, you need to come across right away. We ran across the street to the hospital there, and we had an old used Volkswagen van that had been donated to us. And they said, yeah, you need to pick up this girl. So this girl, middle-class family, her mom, she was in having a C-section. While she was in for the procedure, her mom informed the medical staff that she had AIDS. The medical staff told the doctors. The doctors backed away from the table, not delivering the baby, and losing the life of both the baby and that mother. It was horrible. And that's what we're going through at that point in time. I can still to this day feel the mother pounding on my chest. Why? Why? That's what drives me. That's what makes me move forward. So Casa de Tina was the name of that, and the woman that was our executive director, she has come back to Mexico and is now working on another facility, so I hope she has good luck with what's there. From that experience, I was back in LA working on a whole bunch of celebrity events, and we'd have one big celebrity show where we'd have Barbra Streisand, Bette Midler, Elizabeth Taylor, Johnny Mathis, Elton John, Melissa Etheridge, all these different performers in one show. And just seeing it, and there was a big sign at the back, leave your ego outside. And so it was an incredible fundraiser that raised millions of dollars each year for this organization up there. So I've seen a little bit of everything. While I was there was also the famous, or whatever you'd like to call them, the LA riots that took place. And so I'm sitting in my office right on one of the main strips in Hollywood and watching it on the news, and rioters are spreading across and what have you. There was a lot of anger, justified anger, in downtown LA at that point in time. But I saw in the news that Jesse Jackson and a whole bunch of other people were speaking down near the big stadium. I forget the LA Stadium, Coliseum, I forget the stadium down there where they had the opening of the Olympics. And so I went down there quickly. I wanted to get pictures of Jesse Jackson. I mean, he was one of my heroes at the time. And so I'm standing on top of my car with a video, one of those old video cameras taking video. And all of a sudden I look around and realize I'm the only white person anywhere in foreseeable distance, And, but I didn't have any problems, didn't have any resistance, didn't have any, it kind of just worked. And so I got some great video of that. But anyway, so that was an experience. Then eventually, after working in LA for a while, and I got transferred to an office, a charity fundraising office in Atlanta, where I had a really good time, and then had some family issues. So my family were all from up in Boston, and my father had a battle with cancer. My father's philosophy in life is, work hard and enjoy life. There's plenty of time to rest when you're dead, and Larry, I think, can attest to that. That's how I practice life as well. I love being busy constantly. And so my father passed away from cancer. A year later, my brother passed away from drug-related issues. And then my mother was going through a 10-year battle with cancer, with Alzheimer's, and living with me at the time. And there was something amazing. Different people, and Kat and I have talked a little bit about this in the past, but different people who have Alzheimer's in their experience, in their family, have different thoughts and philosophies and opinions on life, okay? And so not only did my mother have Alzheimer's and die from Alzheimer's, but both of her parents died from Alzheimer's, and her brother and her sister. So it was her entire family was gone from Alzheimer's. And so that, to me, created a tremendous sense of urgency. I want to get things done, because I am not going to go through what my mother went through for 10 years. She had early onset Alzheimer's. At 61 is when she was diagnosed. 71, just a few years from where I am now, she passed away. But in her years, she had this her final years, she had this stuffed rabbit she would keep with her all the time. And when she was with me, she would take the rabbit by the neck, stare me down in the eyes. You knew she just wanted her life to end. But there wasn't a humane way to do that in the United States. And the only commitment I made to myself, my sister has the same commitment, we are not going to go through that. It's not the right way to pass away. So I lost my father, my brother, my mother, my partner's mother, all within 4 consecutive years there. And my partner at the time, he had been in a hospice when I first met him, being told it was his final days of life. And we had several meetings with the doctors. Somehow he pulled through that and got through that. About 4 years into our relationship, he had Hodgkin's lymphoma, and told that he had the bad part of Hodgkin's lymphoma, and they thought that he would not make it through. So a whole bunch of tests, a whole bunch of treatments, so on and so forth, and this wonderful, wonderful doctor in Atlanta, this gorgeous woman, she goes, Steve, she said to both of us, I need to meet with you guys tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock in my office. And so we said, okay, great. She later called me that evening at home and said, Steve, are you alone? I need to discuss some things with you. She goes, there's only one option left for him, and that is bone marrow transplants. And I strongly recommend you don't choose that option. I think you need to bring all of his family up from Puerto Rico, and you need to make the plans that this is the final, not months, final weeks. And so we went to her office the next day, 9 o'clock, and when you're under that type of pressure, time goes by quickly, right? So we're sitting 9 o'clock, 9:15, 9:30, 9:45, 10 o'clock, 10:15. Where's this doctor? How could she leave us here for this? And I'm the only one that had the inside scoop. All of a sudden, 11 o'clock, she comes banging through her door into the office. Guys, you're not going to believe this. I have been on the phone all morning to doctors across the entire United States, asking them to look at these results and discuss this. There is no sign of cancer in you right now. And still to this day, if you meet him, he's the party boy that's out there having a wonderful time. And he's still going strong many years later. So that's pretty, so you never know. So there's 2 versions of the story there. So as I say, eventually I made it down here to Mexico, and we had plans for, so this was our timeline that was going to be presented and discussed at the AGM that would have taken place during one of the Cinco Días en Casa. How many remember Cinco Días en Casa here? People remember that time, 5 days at home from COVID, the beginning of COVID? Nobody remembers that? Come on, yeah, sure. So we had an AGM scheduled during that time, an annual general meeting, and we also had our retreat for the board scheduled during that time. And so we had big plans then. And the timeline was one of the things we would be presenting and talking about. And the reason why I put it up here today is imagine that long timeline there, and it's a few more years to be added to it. If this organization stopped at any point along that timeline, how many fewer services would be offering to this community? So I'm a big believer in progress. I'm a big believer in moving forward. As I change is a crazy thing. When I was with the American Cancer Society, we underwent a major change process there, and they brought in one of the major, I forget the name of the major consulting firms, and they did a 2-year study for them, and it cost them like over $1 million to plan how to make their changes in their organization. So change is scary and it's difficult. And I was chosen as one of the change champions for American Cancer Society. There was one chosen from each district. I was from the New England district. And so I know how difficult change is and how people deal with it. But change is inevitable. It's part of all of our lives. None of us have the exact same body with the same energy that we had 30 years ago. And our community is the same way. It needs to continue to grow and progress and serve more people. We had plans at that particular AGM to announce that we're starting a capital campaign. We had a matching gift of $100,000. It was going to be the second 100 though. Her rule was we had to raise $100,000 before she would give us her second $100,000 in order to buy the Molinari house. That was just pre-COVID. That was going to be announced at that AGM. We were going to announce a brand new computer system that was ready to roll and supposed to start taking place. I had already paid the deposit on it and signed the contracts. We already had trainings on that, and that was supposed to start right there at that time too. We were going to announce an emergency preparedness and end-of-life planning session, and our good friend here, there you go, right here. How you doing, Loretta? She also was involved with that process, and my goal was to have a notebook. It would be a 6-hour training session. You'd have a notebook. You'd be able to go through that notebook and fill out the forms that are in there. So if you don't have a will yet in Mexico, we'd explain why you need one here in Mexico. And here's the forms you should fill out before you go to the notary so that it's a more productive meeting when you go there. We're going to have plans that if a bomb went off on the middle of the carretera or some major crime wave came through town, what you should do. We'd set up, there were plans to set up emergency centers here and how we could communicate out to people and out to the world using satellite phones and some other things. So there were a lot of things that are going to be part of that package and part of that planning for emergencies and planning for the ultimate, end of life. And that unfortunately didn't come true at that moment in time. We also had the priorities for the organization that we were going to be working on for the following years. We were going to do a reorganization of staff and volunteers. I wanted to do a program oriented towards restaurant employees here in town, because all of us love to eat in restaurants, right? So I wanted to have a training for restaurant staff. I absolutely do not want to take a restaurant here and turn it into a gringo restaurant. That is not my objective or my goal. It would be a false goal. But what I wanted to do was work with the staff for free. This would be absolutely free, where waiters, bartenders, service staff, restaurant managers could go through this training. One part of it would be restaurant English, okay? Again, we don't want to treat you to turn you into an English-speaking waiter. We just want you to be more comfortable so that you can make more tips. We want to talk about the customs in the U.S., how they're different than here. Here, it's very rude to bring a check to the table until the customer asks for it. In the United States, where's that check? Why aren't they bringing it? So really share with people how to do that. Upselling is considered not politically correct here, not proper social norm in restaurants. Don't suggest more to people. That's considered rude. In the U.S., that's, I used to be in restaurant management. That was a big part of our training, upselling. Talk people into adding dessert or, a different drink or what have you. And that makes more tips for the waiters. That was, and the waitresses and the bartenders. That was my objective there. So many things were in the works, and then something called COVID came along. So we huddled together with our board. We went from monthly meetings to weekly meetings and came up with lots of different plans. And I asked the board to focus like a laser on just keeping the doors open. So that started, March, I think, was the beginning of COVID. I said, here's our goal. Our goal is to get to September. As we get closer to September, our goal is to get to the end of the year. Our goal is to get to the next AGM, which would be March. So I kept, and everybody wanted to keep on going on all these other plans, but I tried to keep people focused on what mattered most, keeping the doors open. There were 2 occasions during COVID where we were within 3 months of completely closing down our doors. We had some appraisers that came in and looked at property, an investor that looked at the Wilk Center. There were some people that were dead set on selling the Wilk Center immediately. And so all these things were going on at that point in time. And I'm so glad that thanks to many of you, our donors, our supporters, we were able to get through that and keep our doors open. Not only that, but expand. As you see the great work that's been done over here on the other side of the gazebo, I hope you'll take a peek. The patio there, if you remember, was all stones all over the place and a major liability issue. And, you know, that wasn't a good thing. That somebody could have gotten seriously hurt there. And so we've just redone that. It's about to open in the next few days. The veranda over the Neil James house, which to me, Neil James house is the most sacred piece of property here, as well as the tree and other parts. There's additional things, but that's the real sacred part. And on the veranda, the ceiling at the time, if you looked up, you'd see cracks in the ceiling. Now, somebody once told me, a very smart person, Michael Pumphrey, said, if you can fit a credit card in a crack, you should pay attention to it. I could fit my entire wallet in one of those cracks there. And so we made the immediate decision to get some money together quick and tear out the roof there and replace that, which led to the flooring needing to be redone because that was all mismatched too. And there was a root from this tree that was going underneath the Neil James house that was as big as a tree itself, just the root. So that was causing serious problems. And that's why we have leakage in the koi pond still. We've redone the koi ponds twice, but the roots are growing underneath there and causing serious damage. So those are all things we need to pay attention to. The addition on the if you remember pre-COVID, that oval back there in front of the South Campus house there, that was a weed farm. There were just all kinds of weeds growing there, and it was just really messy looking. We replanted that, put new grass in there, put these gravel paths. Gravel's not the best option, but it was the only option we could afford at the time. So we created gravel paths throughout the whole campus here. And we fixed half of the gazebo roof. I want to fix the other half of that. We purchased the Molinari house, as I say. We repainted almost every painted surface in this campus was repainted. We kept our employees working during COVID, keeping them separate. They had different shifts and so on and so forth. But we were able to accomplish a lot of work. We put bilingual signs throughout the campus. The libraries had really terrible rot in the wall. Not only the libraries, even the Neil James house had rot in the wall, mildew, things that were very dangerous. Cleaned that all out and fixed that up. Added another bathroom. Unfortunately now, half of our bathrooms are not in service because of a city problem. And that's something that I think is a huge priority, is getting new bathrooms here on campus. Just as Larry will point out, the bathrooms that are here were designed to be in a single family home. The bathrooms up at the front are the most used bathrooms in Ahihik. Absolutely, absolutely. So we have thousands of people a week using these bathrooms. So it was really important to do work it is really important to do work in those areas. So that's one of my next favorite projects. And so this past March, we had our annual general meeting, and at that meeting, I challenged the board with 5 priorities. One is customer service. I've heard so many complaints from people in the time I've been here of customer service in the front office or in other parts of our organization, and it bothers me a lot. I want to be known for the best customer service, not the questionable public service. So we have a committee from the board, we set up a new committee that's part of the board that's working on that. The IT technology, one thing I learned in my life is anytime you hire a new executive into your organization, they always want to change all the IT systems to their way of doing things. And we were just getting started with a new system, but there was time to still make some change. So Luis has come in, he's put in a good team of people, and I think they're going to be announcing in the next few months the new IT system that will be much more user-friendly. It'll be cloud-based, and it'll be hit a picture. Okay, the same way ordering on Amazon online or Mercado Libre, and of those, this will be a much more efficient system. Community visibility, Deanna's working on community visibility. Certainly this is community visibility, the concepts of community visibility. There's so many things that we're doing out and getting exposure in the community. More people need to know about us. If you did a survey on Main Street here, ask people, name the services that LCS offers. You probably, if you're lucky, you'd get 6, maybe 8, maybe 10. We have over 100 programs and activities that take place here on our campus. And I don't think you could find anybody that could, other than Glorine, that could name half of those. Glorine put together a catalog just before COVID, so she knows what they all are, but there's over 100 activities here that take place. And then, pre-COVID, the big move was to try to build new buildings here. The plan was to tear down the South Campus building, build a sala there that could hold about 150, 200 people for meetings and gatherings because we don't have a big space here. And COVID sort of taught us a lesson that let's first focus on taking care of what we've got before we start talking about new buildings. And so there is a need for some new buildings here, no question about it. Is it going to happen this year or next year? Absolutely not. But let's focus on the buildings we have, what condition are they really in, and what can be maintained, what can be improved upon, what can be enhanced. And so Larry Barnhart, who's on our board of directors, chair of the campus committee, has put together a very aggressive, great committee of about, 17, 20 people, Larry? They're working on that project, including a collaboration with the University of Guadalajara that's working with them on that. So I'm looking forward to tremendous not to put the pressure on him, but I'm looking forward to a tremendous presentation from his team at the upcoming AGM in March. Also, Lee Mannheim will be doing customer service presentation at that. Luis will be doing the technology upgrade. And then my favorite area is community collaborations. Few people know all the things that we do for our community here, and there's so many of our programs between the English classes, which puts about 500 students through English classes. We have student aid, where we not only help pay for their school education, but for their housing and their books and things that they need during that time. We also have needle pushers that makes clothing to help families in need. We have women's empowerment groups. There's so many different groups here, but then there's also collaborations with other organizations in town. We've worked with Cruz Roja, our good friend Yolanda, who many of you know Yoli from her salon, or being president of the Red Cross. And we did a concert on my birthday last year, I think it was, where we raised over 1 million pesos for a new, what do you call it, a retina? A new facility over there at the Red Cross, and one of those medical terms. And then we've also worked with Niños Incapacitados fundraising, Food Bank Lakeside, Ahi Cares, Lakeside Little Theater. We've really built great government relations, not only with the U.S. consulate, but we've had the U.S. consulate's been here 4 times to visit. That's the most any consulate's ever been here. And in addition to that, the ambassador, the U.S. ambassador was here a couple of years back, and the woman that Susan Bitters, she's over all consulates throughout the whole world for the United States, and she thought it was important enough to come here and meet with us. We've dealt with that with great relationships with the city of Chapala, with the presidente there, also with the governor's office, with the various government agencies, the Tourist Bureau. All expat issues come under tourism in Mexico. That's just how their structure is. We're working with a recycling group. In the past, we did a big recycling event here, February 5th. We're going to get in the signal. So February 5th, we're doing a project in Chapala with the recycling group. So lots of things going on there. But I do really want to get to some points, and I know I've talked a lot. Sorry about that cat. But tiene otro micrófono? See? And so Kat is going to move through the audience and try to get some thoughts from you of what are the things you think we should be looking at. And here in a nonprofit, things come under 2 different categories, either board or operations. Operations is Luis. He's our executive director. He's been in the role now for 2 years, longer than I was in it. And so a lot of things will go there. So I'm going to ask, is Deanna here? No? Or Glorian, would you mind? So there's a pad of paper here and some pens. So if something's operations, I'm going to ask Glorian just to write it down, and then we'll pass that on to Luis for him to take a look at. And if it's a bigger picture in governance, then between myself or Larry, we can comment on those. So, Kat, questions?
Okay, everybody, this is your time. What would you like to see for us here? What would you like?
I'll raise my hand.
Okay, let me come bring the mic to you.
Steve, with the number of people riding bikes, would it be a good idea to have a bike rack here someplace on the grounds of LCS? Because you see people moving their bikes always around as they're walking, and it's kind of could be a trip hazard for some.
I love it. I love it. Put that on the list. There, bike pass. Yeah, we need to make sure there's secure bike pass. We don't bike law. Law stands. We don't want to have a situation where people just assume it's safe because it's inside LCS and then it disappears and then we're all embarrassed. So, but a secure bike rack is a great idea. Yes, sir.
Yeah, hi Steve, thanks for the great talk. So I'm very interested in public transport, and one of the things I think is very interesting about the Chapala area is that it's a linear city. You can go from Chapala to Jocotepec along the highway and go just about anywhere at Lakeside, 4 or 5 blocks either way. So the buses that run, you know that the quality of the bus service here is it's okay, but when you go to a bus stop, you don't know if the bus just went by or if you're going to wait half an hour. And all of these buses here have GPS trackers, but the owners kind of have them locked up the data, you know, they different concessionaires, and I've tried contacting them. They're not very open to sharing that data. There are apps out there like Next Bus where you can send an SMS or you know, if you can get that data, you can have an app that shows when the bus is going to arrive. And that's really important because if you're in Ajijic and you want to take the bus, you know, a lot of people are discouraged because they might wait half an hour or something. So
It's a good concern. I got to be able to move around.
Okay, all right. So anyway, I want to work on a Next Bus application.
All right, great.
That's a great idea.
I'm not
I
a public
think-
transportation expert, so I don't know how that all works, but I'll definitely, when I'm meeting with the mayor next time, I'll bring that up.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm coming around.
Haiti does not have a women's shelter for the local women who are abused and their children. And I would like to see Lake Chapala Society explore that area for the community.
All right. We can bring that up at a board retreat and discuss how can we play a role within the community to be doing that. You know, I don't set the priorities for the board, but that's, you know, in the community, there definitely should be one, so, yes. Other questions?
I just learned about the Wilk Center recently, so I'm not sure how does the Lake Chapala Society, how are they involved with that?
So the Wilk Center was left to us by a gentleman, and it's, you know, I have some mixed feelings on the Wilk Center. That it's a nice property, it was donated to us, a lot of programs are over there. But it seemed to me, my observation, just my observation, was that most of the, if you will, Mexican programs were over the Wilk Center. And when I started with the organization, I'm saying, why is that? Are they not good enough to come onto our campus here? So I started raising questions about that, and they're reorganizing some of the programs now that bringing more onto this campus, moving some from here over to there, and so on and so forth. So that's something very much in the works with Luis and with Alfredo and Maria that's over there, trying to figure out the best use of the Wilk Center to really capitalize on it.
And my other follow-up question to that is about investment into quality books there, you know, for local community. Has there been any kind of a push to get more diverse or variety of books there?
So at one point in time, some people had the plan of moving that library, which is a Spanish language book library, the only Spanish language book library in Ajijic, by the way, into our library here. And I felt that that was very short-sighted because I don't think people were looking at how the two libraries were used. This library is used by people that want to go in, skim through some books, try to decide what they want to take home and read, sit and read a few pages maybe. It was a very different setting. What my observation, I'm not an expert, but what my observation over there was, it was more studious youth who after school didn't want to go home to a noisy household to do their homework or do their study and wanted some research books, so that provided that opportunity. So I don't see the logic behind putting the two into one physical space. But again, I'm not an expert on libraries. So we do offer English as a second language class, which has brand new books and a great program that was written for us, actually. Spanish and action, no, that's the Spanish one, sorry. But the English books are used over there by the students, and they're brand new books. So every student gets a book there. There's another one right here.
Yes, good morning. This is more a question also than a comment, but I've been a member here for, I guess, almost 20 years, although we only come in the winter, and have enjoyed a lot of activities here and contributed also at the Wilk Center teaching English. But my question is, a lot of people that I know seem to come here and join and use the activities, and this is something I've never really asked the question before. And I say, are you a member? And they say, oh, no, I don't have to join. And so my question is, how does this actually all work? Because if a lot of people are coming to do line dancing or play bridge, whatever it is, and not paying a membership, how do you organize this?
Sure. So in our monthly magazine, Conexiones, there's a list right in the centerfold that you can pull out and put on your refrigerator, list the different activities going on for that month. And it lists which ones are for members only and which ones are open to the whole public. And those that are open to the public are open to the whole public. And that's very important. So membership has its benefits. In pre-COVID, about a year before COVID, that was our principal source of income between membership and then also the fee for some of the programs. And since then, we've had to change the dynamics because the buildings were really left to become really run down, and deferred maintenance was way beyond where it should have been. And it's costing us a lot more now to fix things up properly. So we've had to decentralize our fundraising efforts, and so now we're doing the concerts. The concerts have brought in these past 2 years, over 4 million pesos. And we did some email campaigns the first year of COVID that brought in over 2 million pesos. And so we're doing things, but we've had some wonderful angels who have stepped up and made some major gifts to the organization, and we're very appreciative of that. And so our income now is more diverse. I think that the membership is only about a quarter of our income now, and it's still an important part of the income. But my opinion is that people used to come to LCS and join it because they were new. It was looked at as a newbies club. And I want to get away from that mentality. I want that you join for life and you stay involved for life. That we have things for you here. So Larry's going to be doing some focus groups in the beginning of the year, finding out from the constituents, not only members, but all the constituents, various groups, to see what is it that people are looking for. What is it that would make this a place you would want to be absolutely committed to for life, and that you'd be part of your life. The same way Rotary Club. They know every Tuesday at 12 o'clock it's Rotary, no matter what, and we want to make that type of a feeling here. Other questions?
Yeah, I'm bringing, wait.
No, I got a loud voice, don't I?
Yeah, but not enough.
Steve, would we ever consider a lifetime membership where I could pay one time and the cost would be for my life?
Yeah, so our organization is heavily driven by finance people. And when you're more on operations and also front of the house people, as you'd say in business, we don't always get along great with the finance people. So for finance people, it's a big question. If people pay a big chunk of money now, do you spread it out on your books over multiple years? Do you spend it all this year? How do you do it? How do you manage it? It's more difficult to manage. And then ultimately, are you really getting less income? Our membership fee, I think, is very low for the annual membership as it is now. We are looking for a way in the new computer system where if you choose, strictly voluntary, you can just check off you want to automatically renew. The same way you do so many things online. I have a couple of dozen things online that, every month I could just get charged that $10 fee or whatever the case may be. And so we're looking at that, which will make it easier for people so they don't have to go into the office. And we moved away from the birthday as the anniversary day. If you're still here and have been since the birthday days, that would still be the case. But if you're a new member, it's whatever day you join, it's a year from there is your membership. Because the problem is if your birthday comes up and you're a snowbird and you're up north during your birthday, how do you redo your membership? So we're working on that.
Anything else? Oh my God. I should just sit over here by you.
One of the things I think we realize is when there's an evening event, people tend not to come because they don't have a ride home and they don't want to walk home in the dark. Is there a way where we could partner with some kind of service where after an event, there would be a cab outside where they could take some of the people home and they would wait there until the person is in their house before they left to make sure that person is there? And I think that service would need to be, they would have to sign up for that service prior to the event so you would know how many people needed a ride.
Right. it opens up a few liabilities for us, and being in business management most of my life, I always think liability first, unfortunately, but so we have to be a little bit cautious of that, but it's still a great idea. There's certainly cab drivers and drivers around town. What I've always suggested to people back when I used to speak for a couple minutes at the introduction to Lakeside for new people in town is, what I found is a great formula is, if you have the name and phone number of 5 drivers, they could be taxi drivers, private car drivers, whatever you have. If you have 5 of those in your cell phone, chances are you're going to be able to get a driver when you need it. But after hours, after 6 o'clock p.m., it gets more of a challenge. You have to call earlier in the day. I mean, I've got 3 or 4 drivers that if I need a cab to the bus station at 3 o'clock in the morning, as long as I let them know 24 hours in advance, no problem whatsoever. So to me, the key is having 5 names and phone numbers in your cell phone of people that you can call, but give them advance notice. But it would be great if we could try to set up something. I want to set up. If you've ever been to Algonquin, Maine, our Maine friend up there, there's this shuttle. It looks like a golf cart, like we've seen around here, but it's like an 8-passenger golf cart, okay? My dream or fantasy has been to have one of those that travels between here, Walmart, Central Laguna, the Plaza, and if we could make a deal with Tobalandia, where people could park in any of those locations, and this would just continuously travel throughout the day, and if there's evening activities. So that way they could drop people off here, pick people up here, but also take them to the plaza or wherever the case may be. And it would be a donation basis, as it is up in Algonquin, where the people using the service just give a donation to the driver, and that's how she, handles her time.
Okay, I think that's it. And if any of you need to leave, we're running over our time a little bit. It's fine. We won't think you're not interested. We think you just might have something planned. But here we go.
Is there a percent of comparison for local residents compared to expats? Do we have very many?
That use our services here?
Uh-huh.
There should be. I mean, we have the numbers, but I don't think anybody's really put them on one page to see what they are. And it varies with the children's art. It also, with this pre-COVID and post-COVID, different numbers. But pre-COVID, we'd have a good 80 children or more for our children's art program on Saturday mornings. 500 people would go through our ESL class.
I'm talking more about people like us that use the services, not that get the services. Well, I'm saying people like us that are Mexicans.
Yeah.
How many people have joined LCS?
Oh, so for membership, the number is small. However, thanks to Larry, one of our board members here, he started one of his major priorities that he accomplished was establishing a Mexican advisory council here. And so it's made up of what, 5, 6, 7, 9 members that are from the Mexican community, and includes Yoli, includes the gentleman from Intercam, from Conalep, different areas. So they all meet together on a monthly basis, and they're addressing how can we get the Mexican community more involved as members, as well as what services are attractive. One thing that really stuck out to them is the need for diabetes screening here in town. And so that's one of the programs that they're, pushing into our board of directors. So we're making an intentional effort in that direction, but the numbers are not there yet.
Well, and you also have like a dream for Open Circle, that there would be, I don't know what it's called, like a teleprompter, but it's so that everything would be translated into Spanish automatically with the speakers. So that would be a fantastic opportunity. That takes money, of course. I don't know where it is on the priority list, but you have so many beautiful dreams, and I'm sure all the board does too. So yeah, that would, part of, obviously the challenge is language. So many of our services or classes or whatever are offered in English, and you're always working, we're trying to change that.
Pre-COVID, Glorian started this program called Conexiones Entre Amigos, which was a networking event in the evening, 5 to 7-ish type time frame. And we tried using Google Translate with a microphone and having come up, but it really produced some very interesting things. For the woman from Actonville Bank was talking about financing and the requirements for financing, and it kept on coming up on the screen. One of the requirements for having an account at their bank was pizza. You know, didn't make any sense to us, but people were chuckling, and she didn't know why people were laughing at her. But anyway, we got through that. So Google Translate just really doesn't work so well for that purpose. Now, when you have a presenter that's much more organized than I don't work from a written script. I speak from my heart. But when you have a presenter who has a script all written out and they go through that script, then certainly a teleprompter is real easy to do, because we just take the speech in advance and translate it and put it up there and have it presented. But we haven't found an effective way to really do it live time. That's a huge priority of mine.
Okay, anybody else burning moment? You're also free to write us notes. Do we have a place where people can stick notes?
Sure.
We have a box, don't we, by the information table?
There was a box, I don't know. But definitely, you can put any of your notes in an envelope addressed either to Luis Pacheco, who's our executive director, so if it's operational based, or if it's more bigger picture and about operations, about governance and so on and so forth. For myself, just address the envelope to me, leave it in the office, and they'll make sure they get it to us. And the same way is that as we're ending one year and going to the next year, you know, I've been in fundraising all my life. So what can I say? I know everybody hates a salesman, but I'm not a salesman. I like to provide people the opportunity. That's all I do. If you're so inclined to make a year-end gift to Lake Chapala Society, we would greatly appreciate it. And if you want to get your next year off to a great start, you can't do a gift this year, please in January, February, take a look. There are a lot of things that really need to be, like bathrooms, that really need to be addressed on campus, and we would greatly appreciate a gift in any amount of money. We appreciate it all. And just leave it in an office with my name or Luis's name on it, and we'll make sure you get recognized and appreciated, and we'll let you know what we're doing with it.
How many of you here that the Lake Chapala existed when you decided to move here was important to you? For me, it was essential. Look at this. So this is such an important place for us, and as it grows and changes and includes more of the Mexican community, I mean, it's only going to get better, right? It's only going to get better. But for me, when I moved here, I didn't really know anybody, and this was like the lifeline, like, the Lake Chapala Society, oh, I think I can do it. I think I can do it. So anyway, thank you all for your participation.
Kat,
it's so
can
fantastic.
I do a two-question
Yes.
survey? Real quick. So, as we're making plans here, there's real quick, my buddy over here, you know, we'll be discussing this. The survey question, so for Open Circle, you've now had a chance to meet in 3 different places, the other side of the gazebo, here, and then up in the blue patio. I'd like to get a survey of where people would prefer to meet when it works out on campus, and then the other is the entrance, whether you prefer entering the side entrance or the front entrance. So let's start with the first one. As far as meeting over on the other side of the gazebo, show of hands, how many prefer that as a space? All right. And people who prefer here right in the garden? There you go. And up in the blue patio? Any people that prefer that? How many people prefer entering the side gate here? How many people prefer entering the front gate and going through the garden, which is my preference, so I'll vote on that one too. All right. It's always been my preference. So, all right.
Sorry, Diana.
There you go. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for your participation, for being here today. It takes all of us.